Welcome to Intersections. Very happy to welcome Veronica Morgan to the set today. Veronica has been a part of St. John's Citadel for quite some time, since her early teen years perhaps, and then on to the present time. We're going to learn a little bit more about Veronica and what she's engaged in here at the Citadel in just a few moments. So welcome, Veronica, to Intersections.
Thank you.
Let's go back in time.
All right.
Okay, you weren't always at St. John's Citadel. So when did you start to attend the Citadel, and what kinds of activities did you get involved in when you first showed up here?
Okay. I think we started attending maybe 2000. So
Okay.
I attended a church of another denomination up till I was probably 12 or 13. Became friends with an officer's kid who had gotten moved to CBS.
Yes.
And so our teacher sat us next to each other because she knew that I went to church. And she was like, oh, hey, we have this kid now in our class.
Gotta watch out for those teachers.
Yeah, right? So she put us together. She invited me to go to church with her, or go to Congress. I think it was like baptism by fire. I think that was like my first Army experience was Congress in Gander.
Wow.
So it was like a bit
Wow.
much. But yeah, so I started going to church with her. They had some activities, probably not as much as like a bigger corps, but then went to music camp and met all these kids who were like my age, who were like, oh, you should come visit. Anyway, so we came, I think it was like 2000 for a visit, and it's just been this one long extended
And so
visit.
what activities did you get involved in once you came here?
Well, that Sunday, the very first Sunday we came, I think went to YFM that night. So that's the youth group.
Yes.
And then it was just kind of jump in with both feet. So got into Corps Cadets. There was like a puppet group that they used to do after Corps Cadets.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I guess I'll stay for that. Got into YP Band. Then youth group would be on Friday and Sunday. And then you'd get your divisional activities. So you'd go to youth councils, or you'd get in the DYB and go to camp. So basically whatever was on the go, like I'd be
You were
there for it.
Yeah.
So then you move out of the youth activities and you get into the senior groups. So I got in senior band. And I stayed like helping with YP Band.
Yes.
So through that. And then Songster, I'm in Songsters now. That's like a more recent development, but well, like 10 years, which is not really recent. But I didn't get in Songsters when I was like 14. But
Okay. All right. So you're helping us move now from being a kid
Right.
to your introduction here, getting your feet wet, getting planted, seeing what it was all about.
Right.
And over time then, moving through the adolescent years into the young adult years to where you find yourself today. And talk a little bit about that part of your life, attending university, and then take us from that into, career, that kind of stuff.
So I went to Memorial here in St. John, so I didn't have to leave home. So I wasn't, had to go to another corps that wasn't my own. So I graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce.
Right. And
I moved away for a couple of years for whatever, I guess Ontario's the promised land, who knows. But I went to work with an insurance and investment company. And then got a little homesick, so I came back home. Basically picked up where I left off here. Like, it was like, oh, hey, you're home. Like, we'll go get you an instrument. So cool, you can help us. So work-wise, I stayed in like insurance and investments. I went on to do, so on paper, I'm a certified health insurance specialist and a certified financial planner, so it's very fancy. And I currently work as a branch compliance manager for a mutual fund dealer. So I supervise like daily trade activity for a group of advisors so I cover Atlantic Canada, Northern Ontario, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan.
Oh, no.
So I'm on this little like cross-country tour
Wow.
of financial advisors. So
Good.
just trying to keep them in
We
line.
talk about the couple of years you weren't here. You stayed with some people that I think I know back in the day.
Right.
And you attended London Citadel
Yep.
Corps. Talk a little bit about that whole experience, other than the fact you were homesick.
Oh, right.
Talk a little bit about that
So
experience.
they have, yeah, so London Citadel has a nice little like Newfie contingent, so that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
And I got involved there too. Like I helped out with their YP band. I taught junior soldiers, which was really bizarre, but they asked me and I was like, okay, cool, I guess. I did get to appreciate the like worshiping in a service like from a congregant's perspective, because I
Yes.
had always been like on the platform, like involved in that way.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, now I can go to church. So I did still make sure to go to church. I wasn't like, because I guess it's like a habit, which is probably a terrible thing to say, but it's not a bad habit to have. Yeah. Kind of like regulates my week, I guess. So it's kind of like business as usual, just in a different place.
And then I recall you coming back here, and I guess somebody asked you to teach corps cadets.
Yes, I guess my teaching junior soldiers experience just transferred over to teaching corps cadets, which, I mean, like the kids, corps cadets, I'm sure is lovely. It is lovely, but like, it's probably not an ideal way for like preteens to be spending their Monday nights, like coming out and just like beating the Bible to death. So I was very aware of like, hey, we'll make this what you want it to be. Like whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about. We'll try to find, a biblical focus. We'll try to answer questions. They asked a lot of questions I still do not have answers to.
Of course.
As you would. Like,
I spent 30 years at that.
right? So like their brains are kind of like working overtime.
Yeah.
But like it was, I guess like you kind of appreciate like the people who taught me. I was like, wow, I tortured them. And then, although those kids didn't torture me, they were all really sweet. But it was interesting. I never really saw myself doing that, but.
But people say things happen for reasons that are not necessarily readily apparent
Right.
at that moment. But they become part of the fabric of who we become, So somewhere tucked away in there was that experience which taught and brought something to who you are, and you took a piece of it and moved on with it.
Yeah.
Just as we do to every activity that we are in, good, bad, ugly, whatever, right? And we bring it on forward. So let's just come right down to the idea of playing in a Salvation Army band, which you've already said is something you enjoy doing and have for a period of time. And now you're leading our ensemble here in this church for the period of time. Different perspective again. What does making music in that way in a faith community, how do they go together for you? Yeah.
So the whole time I was in like high school, university, even like early, like in my working days, I was playing senior band, but I was also playing in a community band in CBS. Yeah. So one group was faith-based, one group was secular.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you still have like that kind of like camaraderie of like playing in a group together and making music together. One was brass, one was concert band, but that's irrelevant. But I guess in church, the Salvation Army specifically, it's like, oh, I have a gift. I should use that gift.
Okay.
I guess that's kind of where the mindset is. And maybe there's like, as a kid, maybe there's like a little bit of like, oh, if I don't go, like, what am I missing? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm too nosy to like stay home out of it. I don't really know. But I always found it, and I was thinking about this, like leading up to this, like I'd go to concert band practice and we play like cover tunes. So you'd play some like medley of like Queen songs or like Led Zeppelin or like whatever. And it's like everybody knows all the words to every single song that we play. Right. Then you come here and I wasn't in the songsters, so I didn't really sing. And I was playing for the congregational songs, so I didn't really sing. So then like notes on a page. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, my ministry is my music. Like, that's fine. But it's literally, if you don't know what you're playing, it's literally just notes on a page. So I did start getting into the habit, I guess, when I was playing tuba, like I could kind of hide in the back row. I'd like bring up my phone. Don't get mad. There's a dandy little like website that has the songbook on it, just FYI. So I would make a habit of like bringing up the words so I could follow along. But yeah, I know, and even now, like leading the band in whatever way I can, like the band is there to enhance worship. So like, you know, it's very much like, you know, God has given you this gift, like use it to the best of your ability. Don't detract from worship, and please just like don't be a distraction for the people in the congregation or the other people on the platform. But yeah, the point of it is to enhance. But you should also be like aware of the message behind what you're playing. Are we all? No, definitely not. And
some days more aware than others.
Yeah, I guess. And I'd say everybody probably knows like the first verse of like the popular songs, but then like does everybody know like verses 3 and 4? Probably not. So I do like on a Sunday, like you'll see me like scrambling with my songbook, like trying to like follow along. Like I'm like, okay, yeah. So I do try to like be aware of that, but it is
the songbook. Interestingly enough, as you get further into it, it expresses our theology, right? In better ways than certainly I could do it personally.
Yeah.
And then when you add those words to those little black notes, right? You have a blending of something that's powerful.
Yeah.
And a lot of people through the years have found that to be something that really speaks to their spirit. They may not be the people that want to get up and talk about faith, but they are contributing and they are playing their faith. Does that make any sense to you? So it's an interesting way of doing that. In our tradition of church, Salvation Army, you can get caught along the way and you're in this activity and then that leads to this activity and leads to something else. And then there comes a point in your life when, you know, you got to make an adult decision.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, mom and dad bring you so far and, you know, see that you're there for this rehearsal and that activity and something else. But then you get to a place that, you know, perhaps you make choices for yourself and you have to make a conscious choice of this faith thing. And I'm not talking about church rules here.
Right.
I'm talking about the relationship with God, straight up, that one. And so when we have the background now of you know, your history, at what point along the way did that adult decision come knocking on your door? You know, was there a point? And for some people, it's an evolution. I mean, we just experienced that. Some folks that longevity of faith, and it's just that. Or was there a point when you'd say, you know what, I had a look at that. I'm having a look at this.
Right.
I choose this.
Yeah.
You know.
This is where I'm afraid I'm like going to end up like getting in trouble. So I don't feel like I've had this big come to Jesus moment.
Good.
And I'm like, I feel guilty about that because I'm like, in the position that I'm in, I probably should be more aware of that. And I think like kneeling down on the side of my bed when I'm 4 years old, ask Jesus into my heart, like I'm 4, like that's just something that they teach you like in Sunday school, like blah, blah, blah. And I remember like running and be like, is he in here? Do you see him? Like, but again, like I'm 4, so that's very different than making a commitment when you're an adult.
Very, very different.
And like, so yeah, like that, I'm like, yeah, that was cute. I was a kid. But as for this big moment where I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is it. It just seems to be something that I've just always done. And maybe that's what it is, because I'm still here. I don't
You
know.
have options.
Right.
Right?
So
you are still here,
yeah.
and you're not exercising the option to go someplace
to go
else.
somewhere else.
And do something else.
So I like, I also don't feel like I've had this like spiritual crisis or anything. Like my life is not at all like I thought it would be, and like, am I happy about it? No, but like, that's just the way it is. So I'm like, I guess there's some plan for it. I have no idea. I don't know. Am I here out of Army guilt? Don't know.
Well, here's the
Maybe.
interesting thing, you think back to the early church, New Testament church, and, the Apostle Paul, who was Saul. And if you've hung around church long enough, you know about the road to Damascus, right? And he had this big experience where he, the Lord blinded him, and
Right.
then all of a sudden he saw life very differently.
Yeah.
And there are people in our world, modern world, who have had that kind of life-changing experience. Not everybody.
Yeah.
And, so there are people that talk about in glowing terms, I once was this, but now I'm this, and how much better life is because I made that decision.
Yeah.
And something happened in my life that stood me up against the wall and made me make that decision. What you're saying is, I've been around this for a long time, and I've grown, right? And I've passed the 4-year-old stage.
Yeah.
And yes, that's a seed planting time.
Yeah.
And then we get around, and activities speak, and people speak to your life, and then you come to a place of adulthood, where you make a decision. It may not be a stark decision,
Yeah.
but it's the decision to keep going,
Yeah.
as opposed to change anything.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm hearing you say, is that the decision has been made to keep
Yeah.
going
I mean, like,
and growing
I'm,
as you go.
yeah, like, I'm aware of, like, what else is out there. Like,
Yeah?
like, I'm not,
No.
like, sheltered by any
No.
means. And maybe if I was an athletic kid, it would have been different. I don't know. I'm not coordinated enough for sports. And, like, that's okay. I wasn't coordinated enough to play the clarinet. And, like, that's okay. But too many buttons. So 3 valves are fine. But, like, I don't know. If I was into like soccer or hockey or baseball or something, like maybe it would have been different, but it was like, well, I'm the kid that's in band, I'm the kid that's in music, like in the school band, like stuff like that. So it just seemed like a natural fit. If band is what is kind of like locked me in, like so be it. If that's what, but you have to like work with what works for people. So if there's something that is offered to them and that's what's going to get them to keep coming. If that's what happened with me, like, hey, we have this banding program and now 20 years later I'm still here, like that's not such a bad thing, I guess.
No, it's not. There's meaning in it for you, and you've discovered what that meaning is for you.
Yeah.
Not for the person sitting next to you, but for you.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier, there are options. One does not have to come and do this.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to, nobody in the family, for example, going to beat you over the head because you didn't go to church or
No.
something like that. I mean, it's your choice.
Yeah, and I was very fortunate that way. Like I was never like forced. It was always, if you want to go, we'll take you. And again, like kind of goes back to when, my sister and I were kids before we were able to drive. Like my parents had to bring us, so they could have easily been like,
and
we're
quite
not.
a distance.
Yes, like that was before the Outer Ring was finished. Like it was back in like late 90s, early 2000s. So they could have easily said like, no, we're not driving 20 or 30 minutes to take you to church. There's one down the road. But they were happy enough that like we wanted to be involved. They were like, okay, we'll do whatever it takes to get you there. Yeah. The day I got my license was like a beautiful day because they were like, go on, see ya. So it was fun.
Veronica, I know you had some reservation about this conversation, but you have presented, I think, a different perspective that's needed to be heard.
Right.
And that perspective is, it isn't always top shelf. Stick with it.
Yeah.
And something will be made of it, and don't give up.
Yeah.
That's the message that's coming out of this. And, you know, that it's a quiet for you. I'm not putting words in your mouth. It's been a quiet kind of evolution of faith in your life to bring you to where you are now, which is going to be different than where you're going to be 10 years' time.
Right.
And which is different than where you were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So there is meaning in what you're saying, because we have people that are listening, and not everybody has that, as we've said before, that Paul Saul experience. So it's important that they take away from what you're talking about today encouragement and affirmation that, oh, well, just because I'm not out there on the on the leading fringe of being vocal and all of that, there's something here for me, and there's a role for me to play, and that faith then speaks to me. Right, so that's where we are, and so just say thank you for that different perspective, which I was counting on. Right, because I know you a little bit, and I know that you say what you feel, and that you're going to get what you get.
Right.
And so thank you for being authentic, and I really do appreciate that. So where to next is a question that none of us know the answer to. For the foreseeable future, you are happily employed, I take it.
I am, yes.
And, you know, it seems to be something that's got a good fit for you these days. And I know that there have been times previous when you've had a little fluctuation here and there. And for the moment, you're engaged here in this church, and we appreciate what you do. And, you know, so thank you very much for consenting to do this particular interview. I'm sure it'll speak to somebody who's listening.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.